Next video I'm gonna watch is I played through all of Final Fantasy XIV in 2 months. My review as a newbie in 2022. And this is actually something I wanted to watch because I also freaking played Final Fantasy in the span of like 4 months, was it? 2 months is almost like you're cramming it because that's a lot of content.
Hi, I'm Heather, and this is Oliver Bentley, my Warrior of Light. Yay! I started playing Final Fantasy
Rocking
XIV
the
for the
street
first time
outfit.
on May 26th, and I went through the
May
entire main
26th
story
this year.
of Realm Reborn, Heaven's Ward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, and Endwalker, and finished it on July 25th. I knew nothing of this game before I started. I didn't look up reviews. I didn't know anything about the story. And I had held back for so long because I knew it was an MMO and I had no interest in playing an MMO. But my brother convinced me to at least check out the free trial. And 2 months later, I finished the entire MSQ.
I remember so many people in my chat going, Pathra, when are you going to play an MMO? When are you going to play an MMORPG? And I was like, no, those games suck you in. I was like, I'm too busy with my Hearthstone. Let me be. And then there you have it. One day, decided to play Final Fantasy XIV. And now I'm hooked. I'm sucked. And then I sucked some of you guys into it.
Or the main story quests. So, what was it like playing a game that took 10 years to get to this point in 2 months? In this video, I want to share what my experience worth of content like and what my impression is of Final Fantasy XIV as a new player in 2022. Now, to give you some background, I am 37 years old. I've been a lifelong gamer.
This is also another thing that I love about Final Fantasy, like, or MMORPGs in general, is that you're gonna find a lot of people in their 30s and 40s. Like, I feel like I'm out of that phase of like playing certain games that I did when I was much younger. Now that I'm getting older, I'm meeting people who are still in my age group playing similar games, and I like that. I like that about the game.
But I'm definitely in a different phase of life where a lot of my IRL friends have kids. They're busy. Yes! I also have priorities and obligations. So when it comes to finding a new game, especially RPGs, which are typically the games that I'm into, I'm not necessarily trying to find the best game to play. I just want to find a game that I enjoy spending my time on. And usually,
also, just want to say before she goes further, a lot of people who play MMORPGs, a lot of people just leave it open while they're doing so many other things. It could be watching a video, playing another game, doing work. They'll leave their character online and you just see them there hanging out in the city, and you can always leave them a message, and that's pretty cool. They're just like semi-AFK.
Usually it's because of a good story. I have played 2 MMOs before. First was Diablo 2, which I played like in high school, college, and then World of Warcraft, which I got super into in college and then played for a couple years on and off. And as much as I loved both Diablo 2 and World of Warcraft, the only thing I remember is how much of a time suck both those games were, especially World of Warcraft. I was totally that person who brought my laptop to class and played in class. Don't do that. My favorite game of all time is Chrono Trigger, and I'm definitely a huge fan of the Final Fantasy series. I think I've played every single one except for 11 and 14 because they're MMOs. And earlier this year, I was at a point where I was really looking for a good RPG. I felt like I had played through everything on the Nintendo Switch. I actually got so hungry for a good RPG that I went back to my DS because I was like, oh, the DS like online store is going to close, so this is my chance to download some games and, you know, catch up on whatever I missed. And then I started looking for RPGs on my phone, like iOS apps. I was like finding myself spending $3.99, like $5 on these phone games. And here my brother was constantly talking about Final Fantasy XIV and saying like, you can play this game for free. Final Fantasy XIV, the free trial, is definitely going to be as good as what I get out of an iOS app. There really was no risk in giving it a try, and that's where my expectations were. I'm estimating that it took me about 350 hours to go through the entire main story quests, and now that all is said and done, what did I think? So here's how I would describe it. You know that feeling where you look back at something and you think like, wow, I can't believe there was a time where I enjoyed that for the first time, whether it's a show or a game or even a new hobby. I remember Steins Gate, like I had never watched anime before, and then when I discovered Steins Gate, I was like, I can't believe this has just been sitting here for years and I had no idea. Same with The Expanse novel book
it's about
series.
Final
Like,
Fantasy.
I
It was
don't
right
read
there, and it's a beautiful
sci-fi,
game.
and then The Expanse is the best sci-fi. That's how I feel about Final Fantasy XIV. I can't believe that this game has just been sitting there because I loved the main story so much. I love this game so much. I love Final Fantasy XIV so much. It's a huge reason why I'm making this video, because my husband is so sick of me talking about it. I'm just like giddy in our house, like, oh my god, I love this game. Not a day goes by where I don't play this game. I just like, I can't explain to you how much
log in daily.
I will say that I am glad that I happened to wait until Endwalker was released to get into Final Fantasy XIV, because I'm definitely a binger, and I have so much like respect and appreciation for the people who have been on the Final Fantasy XIV journey for years. Like I can't even imagine what that experience must be like, but as someone who blasted through the entire thing in 2 months, like it was amazing. Everything ties in so well. Everything just like connects, and the character development is awesome.
I know why it took her 2 months. She wasn't streaming it. Was she streaming it? I can't say she wasn't streaming it. I felt like I took forever. I think it was 4 months, right? Like streaming it. I kept talking with the chat. So it was a lot of like pauses back and forth throughout the story. So 2 months? That's so fast. Like that's why I'm assuming she had a lot of offline gameplay. Yeah, so there was like no interruptions.
The fact that I could just kind of go through one main arc uninterrupted and not having to wait was, I mean, that's why I did, because it was awesome and I was super into it. But it also is really cool to be at the point where I got to watch a live letter from the producer for the first time. So the development team does like a live stream to talk about all the patch announcements and stuff, and it's a completely different experience. Like,
dude, their live letters, I like them. I don't know, it's just like different. It feels so different. Their live letters from other games is the Final Fantasy XIV live letter is so different to other things in games. Like I don't even think like Blizzard does that, right? Okay, when I was playing Hearthstone, there was never like, they would sit down sometimes and talk about the new things that are coming in their game, but it wasn't a lot. I feel like in the span of 5 years that I was playing Hearthstone, I feel like they did that twice. Like the devs actually just sitting there and talking about things. Yeah, probably only twice or twice or thrice. It's not often. Like how it is with Final Fantasy. It almost feels like every few months, like there's a live letter. Every couple of months, every few months, there's a live letter. And you just feel like quite close to the dev team.
Getting to be excited for what's being worked on and all the new content coming out. I had been avoiding everything about Final Fantasy XIV online because I didn't want to see any spoilers, but now that I'm all caught up, I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, one of many things that I love about Final Fantasy XIV, which I'm going to break down in the rest of this video. So
you're saying, to be fair, the card game community can get more super toxic about things, so that's why Hearthstone devs didn't do it much. But you could say the same thing about Final Fantasy XIV. The community could get really toxic about things that they changed, but the community's not that bad about it. Yes, sure, sometimes you'll get people here and there saying like this is kind of bad or something, but like they're never to the point where it's like they're going to attack the devs. Yeah.
So first, I want to talk about the MMO aspect of Final Fantasy XIV, because this was the thing that was make or break for me for so long, because I just refused to acknowledge anything else because this thing was an MMO. And I want to say, through the entire main story quest, I think I played 95% of this game totally solo. And absolutely enjoyed it. I know there are a lot of people
Yeah, MSQ
who
is
play
also
with
low.
friends. There are a lot of people who get into Final Fantasy 14 for the MMO aspect of this, but that's not, you know, that's not what I wanted. Actually, playing with other players was like the scariest part of the game, and not in a good way. It was like super anxiety inducing.
So remember, get on the platform now because the poison looks like it's purple, right?
What platform? I don't know. I'm following
green-
everybody.
You know the green thing? So stand on the green platform.
Okay,
like,
stand
don't
in the
get
green.
off it.
Oh my god, I'm like so not contributing to this situation, and it's
No,
totally fine.
Don't
Oh, she
even
probably did
worry
stream
about
it.
It feels very, I don't know, obvious that I am a newbie in 2022, but I didn't want that to stop me from enjoying what is just a good RPG, and it didn't, which is great. If you haven't played Final Fantasy 14 for that reason, because you don't want to play an MMO, I'll tell you, you actually don't have to play with other people for most of the game. There are parts where you do have to kind of do a dungeon with other people, but they are working on making it so you can play the dungeons with just NPCs. So even in A Realm Reborn, like whenever I could go through the duties or the dungeons with NPCs, I did every single time, and it was awesome. I think their
I
goal
only
is
did
to make the whole
NPCs
thing
once.
soloable, which I would so appreciate, because it is like, not to turn anyone off if you don't like MMOs, but it was really weird being the person in the group who is experiencing the Praetorium for the very first time, knowing that the other people are on their like 100th run of this. They've memorized the dialogue. There's memes. There's like, you know, at this point, I think I myself have done Praetorium like 40 times because of the Moogle tokens or whatever. I actually started playing Final Fantasy 14 on my computer and then ended up moving to my PlayStation, my PS4. I was like spending so much time in my office, and like my dogs and my husband were on the other side of the house, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna get this for PS4 so I can be on the couch and like hang out with everybody. And I actually prefer playing on the PS4, just to emphasize, like, it's not an MMO where I'm like, you know, talking to people or anything. Like, I really am just playing my character like I would with any other game. The other thing I really didn't like about having to play with other people is that because I was the newbie, I felt compelled to watch guides or look up guides on how to tackle dungeon, because basically what you want to know.
Oh, you're always gonna be looking up guides no matter what you do in this game, right? Like, I mean, like, I like that aspect about Final Fantasy games, though. I feel like, you know, back in the day when I played Final Fantasy VII, I liked to Google the like walkthroughs and stuff like that. Oh my god, I remember being so young and just like looking at like, where was that damn summon? I missed some like summon materia somewhere, and I would like read the walkthrough and just find out where was it. And so like this. With Final Fantasy 14, you have to look up like guides online about how to level your. If you're lost with like a certain job quest, you'll find it on the internet, like a list of all the job quests, where they are exactly. Your crafting and gathering, how to level those up faster. That's how I started doing the leaf meats for my crafting. I had no idea you had to do that, or I'd ask people in my chat like, "Hey, someone tell me." Otherwise, I'd be like really lost. But yeah, there's a lot of guides that you have to, like, you have even like guides for how to do a savage fight or an extreme fight. We all do it. So no matter, I know she's saying like because she's new, she's been looking up guides, but like even if you're an old player, you're still looking up guides.
Are the mechanics of a boss, so that like you're not the person that causes the entire team to wipe. I wish I could just experience everything with no pressure, right? Like, not having, I don't want to know what the mechanics are. I want to find them out as I'm going through it for the first time, because what ended up happening is that I would read up these guides or watch these videos and see who the bosses were. They were kind of like spoilers, and then it really was just pressure. It's like, I just don't.
Well, like the game, the story, all the MSQ stuff makes it so you don't have to look up guides. It's definitely doable on your own. Yeah, you'll die and that's part of the process, but it's not like bad if you die. Still, like, someone like the healer will pick you up. It's fine. I like that. I went blind into everything in the MSQ. I did not look up how to do dungeons or how to do like any of those fights, I think it's definitely doable. But once you start going into extremes and then savages, I can see looking up guides for that. Some people still like to do those blinds, and hats off to those people. But that's a lot harder. And if you're playing with a group of people, like you're actually in a static where you plan to do it blind, that's cool. But if you're on Party Finder and you plan to do it blind, you definitely have to state that in the description, blind. That you get all people who want to do the same thing, but most of the other parties are not blind at all in Party Finder.
I don't want to be that person. Like, I want to do a good job. I know I don't want to take up anybody's time. Like, I know people are just like trying to get through the dungeon, and I'm over here like, you know, trying to read the lore thing here, and like no one wants to do that. Everyone's running as fast.
No,
as
but
they can.
people are so nice in the game that they'll wait for you. I
appreciated the times where I could play with NPCs, because it's just like I could play it on my own terms. I could die, I could wipe 1,000 times. No one is gonna like correct me or tell me how to play or anything. I will say, and I'll go into this more in depth later, the Final Fantasy XIV community has been awesome. Like, everyone has been super helpful and kind and friendly, so it's not like anyone ever gave me ish for being a newbie. Now that I'm caught up with the main story and I'm exploring everything else that Final Fantasy XIV has to offer, yes, I would love to play with other people, to make friends, and, you know, to join a free company. I actually joined a free company once, and it's just like, again, there's just such a gap between me being a new player and like the other people there.
Oh
like,
yeah, it can feel overwhelming.
And like no one
There are times where I felt so overwhelmed with the amount, like the game is so big and vast, and there's so many things to learn, and you cannot learn it all at once. And sometimes it can feel overwhelming when you're a new player. I remember when I started getting into raiding, it felt like a lot to learn. They're like, first you gotta do your rotation, and I'm like, huh? Like, I've been just jamming these buttons, and like there's actually like a right way to do things. Okay. And then so I had to go into this Discord, which is called the balance. Once you go into the balance, you go to the samurai section and you look for it. Like, it's not like someone's there to baby you step by step. You gotta really do it yourself. It's not really that hard to find, to be fair. You just gotta really search for it in the Discord and read everything. At first it's like, oh, where is it? Like, there's so many things. But yeah, you open it up, you learn it, practice on a dummy. It'll take a while, like a few tries on a dummy, or even just like starting to learn the opening and trying to do that in dungeons more and more. And then now it's like just part of you almost, you know, like you put your hands on the keyboard, you go into a dungeon or a fight, and you just like already just do it. You're like, yes, I'm good at my job now. It feels great when you already know how to do it. And by all means, I'm still not amazing or anything, but like I feel like I'm at like maybe above average area now for samurai. It feels good. It feels like a journey, and it's like another journey, right? So it's like, not only did you have the journey in the story, you had the journey of learning this job, and it's like there's always something to learn. Like, I remember every week I was like, should I get this sen or stamp first, or this stamp first? And like the balance has like all the answers. There's gonna be like a topic with other samurai players saying, yes, it's better to get this sen first because of this and that, or like this move after the patch is now usable on like at least 2 targets. It's a gain on 2, whereas before in the past it would just only be a gain on 3. But yeah, like things change. You look at the balance and you're like, okay. Oh man, and like the parsing side of it, like, oh my god, I was overwhelmed with that side too, of course. Like, I remember doing my first raid, and then after the raid I was like, yay, I'm so happy I cleared P1S, woohoo. It's like passing an exam, right? Woohoo, I'm so happy I passed the exam. And then someone would be like, hey, I got like this parse, and they're really proud of it, and it was really cool. And then they show like the stats of like everyone's parses, and then I look at mine, I'm like, I suck. And it's like, I just passed my exam, but now there's more work. And so like, it's so overwhelming. But like, you go through, just take it easy, step by step. And now you look back and you just chuckle because you're like, fuck, that was like a hill that you're climbing. It's a good climb, but it takes time. It takes time.
Not they don't care, but it's like, I don't know. It felt awkward, so I left. Again, another part of why I'm making this video, because like I really am just like gushing with excitement for Final Fantasy XIV, and I have nobody to share it with. So I'm gonna talk to the camera instead. The solo duties were my favorite because it's like they were so story driven, and you know, you had to do them solo. And I saw some things online of like, why are, you know, there's people like, oh, why do solo duties, or why are the solo duties so long, and like, you know, my friends have to wait and stuff like that. I'm like my favorite part of the game, because I don't have friends. Like, it was probably the most exciting part because they were so like high intensity, super story driven, and like, you know, it felt like, oh my gosh, this is the boss, like the boss that I alone have to get through. That being said, the community of Final Fantasy XIV is one of my favorite things about it. And that's not necessarily like player to player, but the fandom as a whole is just so positive and really encouraging. You can just like Final Fantasy XIV, or you can get super into it, and people appreciate wherever you are on that spectrum. And I just love that. So for example, there was this thing called LunarCon. I had no idea what LunarCon was. I don't even know how I found out about it, but it's this like in-game con that was planned by, I think, some pretty big streamers. Like, you know, I have no idea who these people are. Actually, I knew because Jesse Cox is someone whose videos I started watching because he did videos on like the lore of Final Fantasy XIV, and he was doing a meet and greet, and I was just like, this is how into the game I am.
Oh my god. I think I saw this guy. I think I saw the line. I swear. Like, I was in Balmung Ulta, and there was a line, and it was like a little Lalafell that looked like that. It was a traveler, and people were lining up, and I was in that line, but we were about to go into a raid. So I was like, I'm gonna line up here for fun with like one other. It was with Iron, my raiding friend, and we were just lining up, and then poof, we disappeared, and people cut us in the line. Yeah, it was Jesse Cox. I had no idea I was actually in the line.
Up with my character so that I can take a screenshot with this person's character, like in the game, in this digital world. There was like a line to get in. I know this sounds so bizarre that I'm talking about. There was a line to like get in, and look at this.
So if you're going to say, look at this huge line. Oh my god.
Okay, it wasn't that long.
Like,
I must have gotten there early. There was at least 10 people in front of me.
Really negative and cynical and jaded and skeptical, and like
maybe it was
really
a fake Jesse
almost,
Cox line.
You know, toxic at times. Coming to the community and the world of Final Fantasy XIV, where everyone buys into it and everyone's okay with doing what they have to do to make it so that everyone can enjoy the experience. That's so rare. I love that. Like, I love that in a small way, I get to be part of a community that is just as supportive as that. I just love that so much. Also, when you're a new player to Final Fantasy XIV, you get a sprout icon next to your name. So like everybody knows that you are a newbie to this game, which I thought was like super awkward at first, but actually makes so much sense. And then when my sprout icon went away, I was so sad. I was like, oh my gosh.
I know.
Is there any way I could turn it back on? Because I'm still such a newbie to this game.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I was like, I'm not ready. Like, I mean, I was like, wow. I was excited, but at the same time, I was like, no, wait, I'm not ready. Like, I don't know everything about this game.
Never done my first raid. Like, I've never done you know, all these things. I was like, I don't want my Sprout icon to go away. I don't want people thinking that I know what I'm doing. Like, I want them to know that I might need a little help. I was definitely not ready to take the training wheels off. But again, even if I had to type in the chat, oh, this is my first time doing this dungeon or something like that, everyone has always been helpful and nice. But my impression is that
first time.
the seasoned Final Fantasy XIV players really do want to encourage and support the Sprouts, the new Final Fantasy XIV players, in an effort to like support the game as a whole, because they love it so much. They want it to continue. They want it to grow. They want more people to experience the awesomeness that is Final Fantasy XIV. So it's like, it's nice that there isn't like, oh, you know, you're a newbie, you don't know what you're doing, you're the weakest link, you're dragging the team down. Like there's none of that.
That would make someone quit for sure.
Something I put on myself. Next, the story. So if there's one thing that I did expect to be good with Final Fantasy XIV, it is the story, because I figured, you know, it's got to be at least as good as any other Final Fantasy story. You may have heard that, oh yeah, it takes like hours to get into the story of Final Fantasy XIV. And even my brother kept telling me, like, just like, you know, skim through A Realm Reborn, like, you don't need to pay attention because it gets good at Heaven's Word. Like, he just kept telling me, like, get to Heaven's Word, get to Heaven's Word. What I will say, as someone who went through the whole game,
her brother was scared she was gonna like not like ARR before getting to Heaven's Word. So he's just like, yeah, you know, just like skim through it. I skimmed through the pirate talk.
in 2 months, is that it's not that A Realm Reborn is bad, it's that it just gets better. I'll tell you that the story of A Realm Reborn is like, it's not a unique story. It's, you know, there's literally an empire, there's rebellion, there's good.
You're right, Rafan. If people stop saying ARR is bad, new players won't find it bad. Just let them decide on their own, you know? Like, let them decide, because you can just say it gets better. It's like always getting better. And that's probably all you need to say. There's things in ARR that I definitely liked. It gave me time to really understand the beginnings of my job. And yeah, it's a little slow, but some people need to have that kind of slow and steady, like, build up. And I'm not saying I wanted it faster at all. I kind of like that it was slow. Maybe there was some areas where it's like it felt like a little draggy, but like that's fine. I'm not complaining about that. I'm jealous of Sprouts now though. I know, because you wish you could be a new player again and experience it all. It's like we're jealous that they're experiencing it for the first time again, because we'll never have that first time experience anymore.
Good versus evil. It's not like, you know, a revolutionary story, but again, that doesn't mean that it's a bad story. It just gets better. And I hate the fact that new players can pay for a story skip to like just skip the story and get straight to, you know, the expansions. And if you want to do that, great, but I think that the other games only get better because you've played through the whole thing. And I honestly wish that I had paid more attention to A Realm Reborn. I found myself like watching videos that did recaps and you know, analysis on A Realm Reborn.
I do this too.
You can think of it as like almost like the pilot. And if you don't know, it's because A Realm Reborn and the production of it is that it was a remake of the original Final Fantasy XIV that was like not good. It's like a bad launch. There's a whole story. I've watched the No Clip documentary, which is amazing, by the way. If you haven't watched it, definitely check it out. But I don't see A Realm Reborn or like 2.0 as an excuse for a bad story. If anything, it makes me appreciate A Realm Reborn more.
Yeah, it was made such a long time ago
into
too.
A game or super into a show or super into a story, you fall in love with the characters and you just want more and more and more. That's what Final Fantasy XIV offers. Like, it just keeps going. Literally, like, it's the longest video game story I've played. The other thing that I really like about the story is that you are the warrior of light. Maybe other MMOs do this or games have done this since, and I just completely missed the boat. But like with other RPGs, you play as one of the main characters and you are controlling the main character. But with Final Fantasy XIV, like you create the character and your character is the warrior of light. All the cutscenes, all the story, it has your name, it has your character with exactly what you're wearing. The character that you spend a lot of time with is the character that all the other NPCs are referring to.
Yeah,
that
that's
is cool.
definitely
When
a cool
I watch
aspect.
other people's Final Fantasy XIV videos, I'm like, who is that? Oh, it's their warrior of light. Which is so, it's like weird
dat?
the way that we're experiencing it. Like we're seeing something different. It's honestly weird to see like promo materials or posters with all the main characters and like my character isn't there. I can definitely say that this Final Fantasy is the best story out of all of them. It's just like, how can it not be? Because it goes so far. It's comedy, it's, you know, friendship, it's good versus evil, it's sci-fi, it's fantasy, it's so many genres that there's a part of the story that's going to appeal to anyone.
Yeah,
regardless
it's got a little
of,
bit
like,
of everything.
regardless if you're a gamer or not, you're a hardcore RPG fan or not. I can't believe someone wouldn't like it. I can see how someone wouldn't have, I don't know, the patience to get through it, which brings me to my next point, being a newbie. So being a newbie, super overwhelming, like not gonna lie. I actually streamed my very first time playing Final Fantasy XIV and was on the fence about it that I was like,
so she really did stream pretty much all of it. Damn, 2 months is fast.
I'm not gonna stream anymore. I was so confused. And I'm somebody who considers himself to be a gamer, who has played MMOs before, but there's just so much. See, this is where I'm like, I don't even know where I'm looking. Like, I don't even know what I'm fighting. I'm like not targeted. I'm gonna die
at
now.
first the fights are like,
wait, I can't.
what is going on?
If you've been playing Final Fantasy XIV for years, like you have been there with the release of every new feature. Whereas like for me, I'm stumbling upon the whole world that's already built. And
right, and like, oh my god, okay, so since I started right before Endwalker to prepare myself for Endwalker, and now after going through the first Savage tier and then now we're going through the second Savage tier, I'm like, oh, this is exactly how everyone felt in the last expansion Savage tier. And it sucks to like, I wish I was part of that. I wish I was part of all those expansions and like going through all those raids. That would have been so much fun. Then like when people talk about, oh, remember the Savage of like this fight? It was so hard, and like compare it to this Savage tier. I can't do that. I only know this Savage tier. But yeah, going like, I'm here now and I'm gonna be playing here onwards. So one day in the future, in the next expansion, I'm gonna be looking back and like, yeah, I was part of that Savage tier. So yeah, it's really cool. I like that. And I envy the old players that they have all those memories of every part of the game coming out one by one. I would have loved to be a current player during Eden, right? Imagine all those old fights. Like we just like, you can experience it still, but it's not the same as like when it actually comes out and everyone is excited and everyone's playing it. The party finder is filled with like 2 pages of like people all just doing that Savage.
And like everything is happening at the same time. So I made the decision very early on to only focus on the main story quest, because that's how I would play any other game. I would play any other RPG going through the main story quest. I am also like the completionist side quest type of person, but I said Final Fantasy XIV is a subscription model. Like I can totally just keep paying and playing and going through all of that after I get through the story. So that helped to simplify everything, the world, the features, all the different ways that you can play the game. But even hours after playing the game, there were so many things that I didn't understand. I was super afraid to sell anything because I wasn't sure like which vendor I should sell it to, what should I sell.
Oh my god. It's like I love listening to her. It's like I'm going through like, oh my god, I didn't sell anything either before. Like, what is this? I remember having to ask like one of my friends who played like, can I throw this away? Can I throw this away? He had to like help me with like any questions I had. Well, he didn't have to, but he did, and he was so nice. I was like, what are these clusters? I have so many of them. They're actually for materia. Let's see what she said about it.
Like, what's worth keeping? I didn't know you can sprint until after I got a mount. Like, I don't know. I just missed that. I didn't glamour until Shadowbringers. And then when I found out how to glamour, I just glamoured the same thing because I really liked how my character looked in this outfit. There was a point in the story early on where I actually wasn't high enough level to take on the next main story quest. So I was like, how do I just level up outside of the quests? And then there was like these Levmet things and fates, and like I didn't understand what those were. So I literally just went and killed like enemies one by one until I had enough experience to get the next quest. I definitely had to watch a few intro videos and beginner guides, and Final Fantasy XIV actually just released their own beginner series, which from the reaction that I've seen and heard is pretty cringe. But honestly, like, as a new player, who cares? Like, I would have loved the info. I just felt like there were so many things in the way of me getting to enjoy this story. So anything to help would have been helpful, right? And that's why I went to YouTube and watched a bunch of beginner guides. I'm actually hoping to make my own as someone who played through the whole thing in 2022. But overall, Final Fantasy XIV is so forgiving as a game. Like, you don't need any gaming experience or MMO experience. If you don't figure it out, like, you're not missing anything. There's nothing that you can't do later or change. Next up, PvP. I actually can't say anything about PvP because I've never done PvP in Final Fantasy XIV, and I have zero interest in ever doing PvP.
No, it's fun.
I have no
the new PvP is
desire
amazing.
to bring in competition into my Final Fantasy XIV experience. I'd rather team up with other players and like defeat a hard boss or something like that. And how is it compared to World of Warcraft? I couldn't help but compare Final Fantasy XIV to World of Warcraft because it's the closest thing I know, but they are so vastly different games. It's not even worth comparing. But here are the differences that I love the most. So first, I love that you can play every class on the same character, because again, you get so attached to your character, and the fact that you'd have to like start a completely new character just to switch from like a healer to a tank and then play all the quests over again. You don't have to do that in Final Fantasy XIV. All you do is change weapon and you're the same character, but now you're a different class. So you can try.
I love that.
That's level
smart. It's
all
so
of them
smart.
up to max level, and it's all on the same character, which is awesome. I love the duty roulette. You don't have to like manually type in the chat looking for group. You can. There's also group finder or party finder, which I've never used. But the duty roulette will basically just match you with other players.
She must have seen like other in the party finder and someone like posting about their feet. Add me on Discord for feet pics. She must have been like, what the?
Trying to do like the same dungeon. But I love that like even at 7 in the morning my time, I could jump into a dungeon. I don't have to like find a party. I don't know if like other MMOs have done that since I quit playing WoW, but it's just so convenient. I love the story and the lore. I remember I was watching a video, I think it was one of Jesse Cox's video, but he was talking about like his experience with WoW versus Final Fantasy XIV, and saying like, oh, if you think back to World of Warcraft, like, could you summarize what the story was about? And I honestly couldn't tell you. Like, I spent so many hours playing that game, but like I can't like succinctly describe to you the story. I can't even like kind of describe to you the story. I have no idea. I just know it took place in Azeroth. But with Final Fantasy, it's like story first. It's so story driven. You can ask anybody and they can describe to you like what Heaven's Ward is about and what Stormblood is about and so on, or even just like Final Fantasy XIV in general. And the lore, like, I am such a geek for it. I love it. Like, I love how much of the world is built out. This is what I wish for all the stories that I love. I wish that I can just like throw myself into it and get completely into it and find out every detail. I cannot get enough of this world, and if you want it, it's there. And probably my favorite thing about Final Fantasy XIV versus World of Warcraft is that is so much more about customization. I don't even think there was any customization in World of Warcraft. At least when I played, it was more about like having the full set of some super rare gear that you have to, you know, just keep.
Do they have glamour in World of Warcraft? That's what I was thinking about. Like, and I love the glamour in Final Fantasy XIV so much that I was asking some of my static members who play World of Warcraft, how was your outfits in World of Warcraft? Did you like them? Or do you like your Final Fantasy XIV outfits more? And they were like, no, I love the customization in Final Fantasy XIV way more. Yeah. They just say like the outfits look nicer. Like, and also when you don't specifically have to just wear all of one set in Final Fantasy XIV. You can mix and match and it could even just look like a set, and you made it. You made this outfit work. And this is like, they're all from like different things. They have a system, transmog, but there isn't a lot of variety because you get different fantasy armor sets. In Final Fantasy, you can look badass or you can look like a giant elephant. It's true. You can.
Grinding until you finally get the whole set, and it's like everyone would recognize it because everyone knows what it looks like. But with this, it's like there is no best gear. I mean, I'm sure there is that, but people have so much fun dressing up their character and all kinds
it's best
of
gear
stuff.
underneath
like,
the glam.
Bikinis to dragoon armor to like characters from other Final Fantasies to like just absolutely whatever you want. That's the fun part, is that like there is no best, and it allows the player to define what they think is best for them. You can
show personality,
enjoy the game how you want to. There's no like end goal. There's no like this is what it means to be the best Final Fantasy XIV player. It's just however you want to do it, and I absolutely love that. The customization is honestly crazy because if you don't know, you can do this thing called glamour where you can, you know, have a piece of gear, say you have like a sword that has awesome stats, but you actually like the look of this lower, you know, level stat sword instead. So you can take the look of that sword and glamour it on to your more powerful sword. So it'll have the stats of your powerful sword, but it'll have the look of the other sword. And so like just imagine
what people do with their ultimate weapons, otherwise they'd be useless.
Customization that people come up with. It gives a sense of creation and individuality to the player in a way that's like I think very rare in video games, because it's not like I'm playing a character, it's my character. So to wrap it up, I cannot explain to you how much I love Final Fantasy XIV. I'm so
yay, we have another lover in our community. Let's go.
It's funny because when I started playing, getting really into it, he got super busy and totally stopped playing. So I'm not kidding when I say I played most of this game completely solo. But that's not to say that I'm opposed to it. I would love to play with other people that, you know, just want to enjoy the game just like I do. So if you want to, I don't know, connect or send me a tell, I'm on Behemoth. My character is Oliver Bentley. And if you haven't played Final Fantasy XIV yet, you're still on the fence, this is the perfect time to give it a try. Start like I did. Start with a free trial. You can get so much game. There's no like gameplay restrictions in terms of how many hours you can play it on the free trial. You can play through all of A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Ward and get all the way up to level 60 for free. So thanks for watching, and again, if you want to hang out in
everyone should do
14, I'm on the Behemoth server. My character's name is Oliver Bentley. See you in the next one. Bye.
Aww, that's such a nice video. Let's give it a like and let's subscribe.